Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's win at the Lamb Ground, Tamworth 0, Tottenham Hotspur 3. We got there in the end after extra time. Now, we are live on YouTube, we're live on X, live on Facebook and Twitch, so please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And of course, we will be reacting to the FA Cup fourth round draw, which I am very glad to say that we are in because of beating Tamworth 3-0 today. Now, we have just reached 150,000 subscribers, literally in the last hour. So thank you so much for all of your incredible support. It's a real milestone on this channel. And to be honest, when I started this channel, I never, ever thought that that would be possible. So thank you so much. And if I could ask a big favour from everyone, tomorrow is the deadline. We have been shortlisted at the Sports Podcast Awards. We are in the category for Best Team Podcast. And as I say, the voting does close tomorrow. So if you can vote for us, it would be really, really appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Tamworth 0, Tottenham Hotspur 3, an own goal in the 101st minute. Dejan Kulusevski putting Spurs 2-0 up in the 107th minute. And then Brennan Johnson finishing things off in the 118th minute, meaning that we go through to the fourth round. Now, the stats here. Tamworth had 22.6% of the ball to Tottenham's 77.4%. Shots, Tamworth had 13 to Tottenham 17. Shots on target, Tamworth had 2 to Tottenham 7. Total touches inside the box, Tamworth 18, Tottenham Hotspur 65. Goalkeeper saves, Tamworth 4, Spurs 2. Fouls, Tamworth 15, Tottenham 12. And corners, Tamworth had 6 to Tottenham's 11. All credit to Tamworth, and you know they should be really, really proud of themselves. Now, the panel on today, we'll say a quick hello, and then we'll get into the football. We've got Harry Scarfe with us from England. Harry, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having us once again. I did worry at one point, what we'd be discussing at the end of that 90. I mean, that was a horrible, what felt like a few minutes, probably was a few seconds. But no, we got the job done in the end, as Ange said. So thank you for having me once again. Looking forward to getting into it. And of course, previewing the North London derby.
Pleasure. Great to have you here, Harry. And we've also got Brian Dagul with us all the way from Canada. Brian, how are you?
First of all, Chris, massive congratulations on reaching 150,000 subscribers. You put in all the work and effort. Massive congratulations to you. And yeah, the word I would say, I'm good. I'm relieved. Relieved is the word of the day for me. Phew, thank God.
We've also got Adrian Tisato with us all the way from Australia. It is 3 o'clock in the morning for Adrian. So, Adrian, big up to you. And we will get off this stream as soon as possible so you can get some sleep. How are you, though?
I'm great, Chris. I don't know if it would have been that great if Tamworth had scored that from that shot late, close to the 90th minute there. But anyway, having got the result, I'm just so relieved, and I'll sleep well now.
Harry, let's start the show with you. Your thoughts on today's game, because going to extra time with as the interviewer said there to Ange Postecoglou, against part-time players. I know the manager went full-time this week, but they've got bricklayers, they've got shop workers, they've got factory workers in this team. But I tell you what a great account they gave of themselves to take a Premier League side to extra time. And had it have been, different rules this year, they would have got a replay at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. As I've said, they should feel very, very proud. And I've literally just walked to the car from the stadium, and I've got to say, very welcoming club, a lovely club. And I can't speak highly enough of Tamworth. But what did you make of the game overall today?
Yeah, I thought it was a frustrating game. I don't think that we were very good. I think on paper that should be a strong enough team to beat Tamworth quite comfortably. It was a strong team, but also protecting key players like Deki, Solanke and Son. So on paper, we should be doing a lot better. But as you say, full credit to Tamworth. I thought they were excellent. And as you said, to hold a Premier League club for 90 minutes and take the game to extra time is massive. We knew they were going to tire, but it just felt like going into like that 90 minutes, it's just like, when are they going to tire? It took so long. It did eventually come. I think that first period of extra time in particular, second, they were totally drained. But no, they can be really proud of that performance. As you said, they'll feel hard done by not getting that replay, because that would have brought in, I think, up to £1 million for them, which is nearly more than what they earn all year. So that would have been massive. But yeah, back to work for many of them tomorrow morning. I find that really unique. But no, it's a great day for them still, even though they didn't get that replay, even though they didn't get the result. Would have made a lot of money. Been a great time for the community, for the town to come together. But from Spurs, very, very disappointed. I think some senior established players will be very disappointed tonight. And I thought, the likes of Brennan, I thought weren't very good today. And when he scored that goal, not obviously over celebrating is understandable. So not a good day at the office, but we got the result. That's all that matters. No one will care if we go on and win this competition or progress to the latter stages of the competition. It's a win. We're through to round 4 and we can breathe now.
Harry, who were you impressed with today?
There weren't too many, if I'm being totally honest with you, in terms of starters. Basuma, I think he's really found his form recently. We all know what he's capable of. It's just a thing of consistency for him. And I think the last few games he's become more consistent and a really important time where questions are being asked of him, rightly so, in a January transfer window as well. So he's really stepped it up. But off the bench, I thought Bergwijn once again really impressive. I think we should be seeing him more starting in the Premier League, for example, at North London Derby. For me, he's earned that start. So he impressed me. Spence coming off the bench. I thought Gray coped well, tough atmosphere for him. Obviously, keeper and other clean sheets. There is, positives in and around there. I thought off the bench, Son as well looked very good, even though to that moment of trickery, which could have another day resulted in a goal. So there weren't many, but in terms of starters, Basuma would be the one.
Brian, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's win. Of course, with cup competitions, we don't want to dwell on the performance too much, do we? Because we are through to the next round. But, I feel like Tamworth did really frustrate. I thought that they defended really well. They were really up for the fight. They were very physical. What do you say in terms of Tottenham's performance in the opening 90 minutes? Because going to a non-league ground like this, a Premier League club like Spurs, should really be getting that job done. And we'll talk about team selection in a minute. I felt like it didn't matter what team that Ange put out today, Spurs should go and get that job done inside the 90 minutes.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. It was clear to see Tamworth had a game plan, which was obviously keep it tight, keep it compact, just don't concede early or at all. The longer it goes on, the more a smash and grab will become an opportunity. Tamworth did their job brilliantly. They really did. And it should have been down to our superstars, our elite athletes, to be able to break them down no matter what. Listen, it was an AstroTurf. We've been training on an AstroTurf. It had a slope. These players have played Sunday League and probably played on worse pitches. They've had everything given to them, and they should have been able to undo it and be able to pose a threat to what they did. And it just wasn't good enough. We only started to do well once they started to tire. Tamworth, I think, deserve a lot of credit, a lot of respect. They came out, and as I was saying to you before we came on air, Chris, 1991 when we won the cup, it all started with a really poor 1-0 away win to Blackpool, who would have been in the same sort of in the tier for, I think, a Division 3 or 4 in old money. It was just, I couldn't believe what we were seeing. They knew what was going to come. We knew that they were going to try and kick lumps out of us. We knew that they were going to use this long throw, and we just didn't have any answers to the questions they put us. Not acceptable, really.
Brian, what positives would you take from today?
That we have got a goalkeeper that can catch corners and kick the ball. I don't know what sorcery this is. We finally got a goalkeeper that can do those two things. I think Archie Gray deserves a lot of credit, playing non-stop in a position that's not his. Maddison looked good today, and so he should have done, in all honesty. And Mikey Moore in that second half. And that is about it. There's a lot more poor performances to dissect than positives, but I would say Gray, Mikey Moore, Maddison, and of course the keeper.
Brian, I know we're getting to the match incident shortly, but what do you make of Spurs playing on that particular pitch today? Because I felt like when you pass the ball, and I've no doubt that all of us have played on an AstroTurf pitch, When you pass the ball, the ball moves a lot quicker. The control, you need to be a whole lot better at the control. And there were a lot of misplaced passes from Tottenham today, which was frustrating.
It was, and it was on both sides as well. But you're right. You could see the ball moving a lot quicker. Obviously, they've got different boots on as well. Not that that's any kind of excuse. Playing on different surfaces, I'm never going to use that as an excuse. But it did look like, and there was the frost on it. But yet again, the Spurs players have been training on a plastic pitch or an artificial pitch all week. So it's not like they haven't got used to it and haven't been training for it. But then when it came to the actual game, it just fell apart, didn't it, really?
Adrian, let's come to you. I love having you on this show because you are a real positive fan and you're one that is really behind Ange Postecoglou. But that was a frustrating 90 minutes, wasn't it, today?
Oh, yeah, it was. I think I spent the entire second half shaking my head and holding my breath. I did think the pitch was awkward. I thought when Sonny came on, actually, at one stage, he looked like a kid learning to ice skate. I mean, he did not look like he was going to keep his feet when trying to carry the ball, try and dribble with the ball. I always thought this was going to be a really tough tie. We have had a really, really difficult period. And the minute I saw Timo Werner lining up at centre forward, I hoped, but all I had was hope. And then I guess there was a bit of lack of quality that I saw from some of our top players. I thought Maddison, whilst he played well in the first half, had a couple of gilt-edged chances that he just didn't connect with the ball as well as he might on other occasions. And I felt like we were, kind of hopefully putting crosses in, including Brennan Johnson. The quality of his of the balls he was firing into the middle just weren't at a caliber that we need. And sometimes just firing them in, whether or not there was someone there. So as the game wore on, I was starting to have visions of what the social media frenzy was going to be like if Tamworth stole a 1-0 victory at the end. And as I say, my head just kept going like this and my fingers were crossed. And anyway, having said that, as a kid who grew up in Australia, born in Australia, but of Italian migrants, we grew up watching the World Cup in the middle of the night. And I'll never forget the first World Cup I watched, which was 1982. And Italy suffered terribly. They drew the first 3 games in the qualifying round and should never have gone forward. Somehow made it into the next round. Everybody was calling for Paolo Rossi to be dropped from the team. And somehow they came up against one of the best Brazilian sides in history, beat them 3-2, went on and won the World Cup. So I also understand how tournaments roll. You just have to be able to find a way to win. And we found a way to win. And in the end, it was relief. And I do think that the touch of class that Kulusevski brought onto the pitch in his short time on the pitch just changed the game. I absolutely respect the players like Archie Gray and Kinski, who'd played so well throughout the whole game. But the player who changed the game, in my view, was Kulusevski.
Couldn't agree more. And you mentioned Archie Gray there. Archie Gray, after the game, said, "I'm not going to make excuses. We were not good enough for 90 minutes. Quite a few of us were not at the races today. We have all played on these pitches when we were younger. So it is not different for us." It's funny because I said to a couple of guys in the crowd who I was standing next to that some of the first touches today I felt were absolutely awful. And I don't want to have this podcast as a negative podcast because, of course, we are through to the next round, but it was frustrating at times. Harry, let's talk about the starting 11. And as Adrian mentioned about Timo Werner there, the starting 11, Kinski, Porro, Dragusin, Gray, Reguilon, Sarr, Basuma, Maddison, Johnson, Timo Werner and Mikey Moore. And as I said earlier, I felt that whatever team Ange Postecoglou put out today, it should be, we should have more than enough quality in that starting 11 to go to Tamworth and win. The subs today: Austin, Bergval, Spence, Dorrington, Kulusevski, Lancashire, Elise, Solanke, and Heung-min Son. By the way, a lot of the home fans were very, very pleased to see that Heung-min Son had travelled. I had hoped that he wasn't going to get a minute of action today. Same with Dominic Solanke, same with Kulusevski. But of course, we had to bring on the big guns to get the job done, as Adrian said, in that second half. Timo Werner, I'd like to start on, Harry, because he was booed. He was booed a number of times by the away end today. A lot of very, very frustrating moments in the game. Surely, a game like this, someone like Timo Werner needs to grab that opportunity, build the confidence, score a goal or two in the game. How frustrating is it with Timo Werner today?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It really is. And I've defended Werner a lot in the past. But, you know, when you haven't got the confidence to take on, like, you know, Tamworth players, Tamworth defenders, then there's clearly a problem. So he should be doing a lot better. And it just his touch, his pass, and everything was really poor. And based off that performance, wouldn't get in the Tamworth team. However, I can't defend booing from our own sections of our fans. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's right when it's happened in the past. I just don't think there's any need for that. While the players at your club, we're all frustrated. We want more for Werner, but I don't believe in booing him. I don't think it's the right way to go about it. But yeah, he's certainly a player shot of confidence, really struggling right now, and a player that's all he's proved so far this season is he's got pace, but he just doesn't know how to use it. So really frustrating, and has been really poor this year. Last year, if I'm honest with you, I thought he was good. I'm not talking necessarily about his all-round play, but his numbers in terms of goals, assists would come off the bench and have that impact. But this season's been very, very poor. And if I was Spurs, I'd be looking to terminate this loan in the window. If I'm totally honest with you, coming from someone that actually quite likes Werner, understands why he was brought in last season. Don't understand it this season, but did last. But yeah, he's been really poor, and today he wasn't good. And I'm just surprised by the length of the time that he stayed on the pitch. Harry, what did you make of the team selection today? As you said, Chris, it should be strong enough. I was really happy when it came out because, you know, protecting players, as you rightly alluded to, Chris, and I alluded to earlier as well, in Deki, Solanke, Son, as well. Of course, I would have liked us to rest more, Basuma, Gray, but realistically, we want to be treating these competitions seriously. It's about time we treat them seriously and show respect to the competition and the opponent. It's something we didn't do against Coventry. And just about squeezed through earlier this year in the League Cup. So I was glad to see us go stronger. Obviously, it was a really disappointing performance. Looking back, the only thing that probably Ange got wrong was not having that physical presence up top. Don't think it would have been right to play Solanke. He played a lot of minutes recently, but maybe Lancashire you could certainly make a case for. But maybe Ange doesn't think he's ready. But that team should be good enough, and it was a really poor performance. I mean, that man you shot there, Pedro Porro, we're talking about an established player. It wasn't very good today. Just a lack of concentration. And Archie Gray spoke really well. I listened to that interview. Obviously, you got the quote there as well. He was spot on. I think he was one of the better players today. But he takes collective responsibility. I think we're talking about a future captain there. Speaks so well. He's right. No excuses. We weren't good enough. It's as simple as that. And that lineup on paper should be, no disrespect, beating Tamworth comfortably, but also credit to Tamworth to hold us for the time they did. They were very good and should be proud of that performance.
Brian, let's come to you. Of course, we'll talk about the Arsenal game at the end of the podcast, which, of course, takes place at the Emirates on Wednesday. As I said to Harry there, it's a shame that we couldn't completely rest Son, the likes of Solanke and Kulusevski, because they had to get the job done for us in extra time. Your thoughts on the starting 11 today?
Starting 11, I mean, what I will say is I don't understand what we've got to do to give Will Lancashire minutes. I don't understand. As Postecoglou gives him 90 minutes or starting position away at Galatasaray, one of the most hostile and volatile places in world football, yet he can't get minutes anywhere else. He should have started up front for me. Like you, I didn't want Dominic Solanke, most importantly, as well as Kulusevski, having to on the pitch. Solanke is working his socks off game in, game out, and looked exhausted by the end of Liverpool, and probably so the amount of work he's been putting in. We had Jonathan Pearce, Chris, doing the entry over here in Toronto, and they're saying this was Dragusin's 18th straight game. And I can't remember what number they said for Archie Gray. They need to centre backs at the moment, or the part that we're going for. So this is the time we keep getting told about Project Youth. Yet when we have the opportunity to play them and rest players, we don't. Timo Werner, bless him. I've never seen a player so low in confidence, probably since Soldado at Tottenham. He just, whether we start him, he's just not getting, even when he gets the chance, he's not taking them. Even when we bring him off the bench and say, go make an impact, I feel he's just not good enough. He's not good enough. And the team selection was just those two alone. Dorrington and I don't know what Dorrington and Will have to do to get on the pitch, especially when we're going down this youth project and they can't get even on this pitch to give players that desperately needed a rest.
Yeah. Adrian, let's talk about Kinski. Of course, his second appearance. He only signed for us last week. He's played 2 games already, 2 wins. He had to make a save after just 20 seconds, which all of us in the away end were like, oh my God, 20 seconds in, and we're nearly 1-0 down. But another good save from him.
Yeah, as you know, Chris, I've said before, my dad was a championship-winning goalkeeper in the 1950s for Adelaide Juventus. And then my brother and I were goalkeepers, and now my son Julian is a goalkeeper in Spain. So we are a mad family, and Kinski's got a touch of madness about him, which I like. I think just the look in his eyes has got that sort of slight madness. But I've just loved watching him play the first 2 games, and I did have my heart in my mouth when that shot that he saved, that shot in the first minute. He just seems to have that calm swagger about him, which you love to see in a goalkeeper. It seems that whatever the situation, he doesn't look like he's flapping around or nervous. I love the fact that he's obviously come to the club. Apart from his goalkeeping ability, his ability with his feet is clearly, with distribution, is clearly elite. And today he's prepared to mix it up, and his choices as to when to play short and when to quickly get the ball on, either with side volley or with a kick out long from the floor, it seems to be spot on every time. So he's a bit of an Iceman. So it's exciting to see. He's the cool Scandinavian. I love it.
Adrian, let's stay with you. Early on in the game, Brennan Johnson overhit a cross. James Maddison then had a shot blocked. After 13 minutes, Tamworth, with their wonderful throws into the box, hit the post. It wouldn't have counted, obviously, if it went straight in. But that did cause a real threat, that big throw in to the Tottenham Hotspur box. And then after 22 minutes, James Maddison had a shot over the bar. Maddison had a number of chances in that first half. What did you make of his performance today?
I mean, he was busy. I mean, he was captain. He clearly took it upon himself to try and be the engine room in that midfield. It's really difficult with Maddison for me to make an assessment. When he first played in those first 10 games of his first season for Tottenham last year, he was quite extraordinary. And he was turning sides inside out. He was slippery. He was bringing other players into the game. He then had that injury and he was never the same last season. This year, when he's had his chances, he hasn't finished in the way he needs to be playing in that role. I think his finishing has been lacking, and his creativity hasn't been as consistent. And so when I saw him not score from one of those 2 chances, it was just frustrating because I feel like the player clearly is elite, and he to be able to be the dominant number 10 that he clearly wants to be, and the team needs him to be, he needed to score one of those shots in the first half. And I just hope that he will get to that point again. And the other thing that's frustrating for me is I just feel when he's taking corners and free kicks, we're just not getting the quality we need from them. There's too many of them that just don't hit the mark or don't put us in a dangerous position to score. And that a player who's wearing the number 10 has to be troubling the opposition every time they're taking a corner or a free kick. I just think it's an area that he's going to have to keep working on to improve. And if he doesn't improve it, he's not going to be able to step up into that elite playmaker, number 10, game-changing role that I think he has the potential to have.
Harry, let's come to you. After 23 minutes, a good move from Tamworth. The shot was blocked by Archie Gray. After 27 minutes, Timo Werner overhit a pass to James Maddison. It then went out of play. On 36 minutes, James Maddison had another shot, a good save this time from the goalkeeper. And then on 37 minutes, a corner come in. Gray was on the end of it, and then it was blocked and then cleared. Archie Gray, I feel like on this podcast, we don't talk about Archie Gray enough. What did you make of him today, and what have you made of him in a Spurs shirt? Because he just seems to have come into the club, and it's like he's been a player for years. He's only an 18-year-old kid, like Ange Postecoglou talks about all the time. He always references, how old Bergval and Gray are, just 18 years old, because them two have been shining lights this season, haven't they?
They have been, absolutely. And let's start with Archie Gray. I mean, exceptional, 18 years old, been played out of position at centre-back. I mean, the comment says there, and I absolutely agree, a future superstar. In fact, he probably already is a superstar. He's done really well. And today, obviously, conditions hard, out of position. On paper, it could have been really tough for him, but he dealt with it really well. Miscommunication with Basuma earlier on, the crowd on his back, but he dealt with it just so well. And no disrespect necessary to Dragusin, but you would have thought Gray was the natural centre-back if you didn't watch him every week. And that is real credit to Dre more than it is criticism of Dragusin. And I think hopefully he's getting better as games go by. I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, Gray's really impressed me and speaks so well as well. I listened to that interview, really professional, really mature, just like his performances on the pitch. And I don't want to get necessarily carried away in terms of when it comes to captain, but I think we've got, the future captain on our hands and should be part of that leadership team long term. And I think we do lack leadership at this club, but a couple of potential captains for the future are emerging in Kulusevski, in Archie Gray, which is really, really exciting. Talk about real talent, and Bergval as well for me. If you haven't been, persuaded by what you've seen already, the last few games are, encouragement, because he's been a lot better. And just the second half against Liverpool, just that level of energy, aggression, and just his quality of passing, the drop of the shoulder, the low sense of gravity. So he really impressed me as well. So it's two really young players. We've got talent on our hands. That's the exciting thing. But I totally get Brian's point and everyone else that are making in the chat as we speak, and we'll be making the socials, and that is the likes of Lancashire, Dorrington. Why don't we give them a chance? We don't know they're special if we're not going to be giving them a chance. That's the thing. Bergval and Gray, obviously not for us, but we wouldn't have known they were special until they got their chance in the club, until Leeds gave Gray the chance, until Lancashire, Bergval got that chance in Sweden. So we need to give these players opportunities. I think with Ange, maybe Dorrington, he thinks he's not ready, because you obviously hear a lot of links to him being going out on loan. So I don't know. We'll have to say, I don't know about, for me up front, Lancashire, because whatever you think of Werner, he just isn't the number 9. He's not going to finish his dinner. Even, if you like Werner, that's absolutely fine, but he's not going to finish his dinner. But Bergval and Gray, really impressive. And among all this chaos of good results, bad results, good performances, inconsistent, bad performances, those two have been excellent, in particular Archie Gray. So credit to him.
Brian, let's come to you. As Harry says there about Lancashire and Dorrington, if both of those guys can't start in games like this, when can they start games or be involved heavily in matches? And I've written down here, just before half-time, on 41 minutes, Tamworth attack, they crossed in, Saab blocked it went out for a corner. Now, during that corner, there was a lot of pushing and shoving. Yeah. There was a lot of physical contact with the players. Tamworth players constantly trying to dig our defenders and put Kinski off, and men around Kinski trying to put real pressure on. Is that the reason why they didn't start this game? Because it was so physical, and Ange don't think that they are up to the challenge in this match?
Well, I'll start with Lancashire to start off with. Lancashire, I mean, I'll go back again. If he's good enough to start away at Galatasaray,
yeah,
he's definitely good enough. He's definitely good enough. And one thing you did mention is physicality. That's one thing Lancashire's got in abundance. And I would have rather seen him come on the pitch over Solanke and give Solanke the full time off. I think this type of game would have suited Lancashire a lot better, the physicality of it. But you're right, problem we have. Look at that team. There really was no. I don't want to say strength in depth as in quality of player. I mean genuine strength, and literally players that would go, right, you're not going to be brushing this guy off. Dragusin tried. There was a bit of UFC at times with Dragusin and a player, but there really wasn't any players to stand up and say this ain't happening, was there? But Lancashire, I think, would have added strength. Dorrington, he's a more cultured centre back, more like if you're to link him or like him to play more like a play out from the back centre back than a bruiser. Maybe that may have been an issue behind him, but I mean, what I would have loved to have seen him start, and I would have loved to have seen, if we had to play Gray start in midfield. Archie Gray, like Harry's mentioned, like you've mentioned, and like Adrian, I think this guy is getting nowhere near the credit that he deserves. He is growing and growing and growing in confidence.
Yeah,
he's going to be a number 6 for us, and I think this time in defence right now is going to be incredible for his development and positional play. But when he does eventually move into the 6, I think he deserves a hell of a lot more credit than he's getting.
Brian, it's not the first time that Ange Postecoglou has said about the conditions. He uses that term a lot, I feel, about, difficult conditions. We knew exactly what we were going to Tamworth today in terms of the pitch. And it was funny, actually, because to the left of the away side, you've got people hanging out of their windows watching the match, and people peering over fences watching the game.
Yeah.
It was just like so old classic stadium. Love it. But the physical side, did you feel like Spurs were really up for that fight? Because Tamworth, we know, are a physical side, and we've been hearing interviews all week from the Tamworth players saying, tackle's going to be flying in. I think the team and Ange knew that the tackles would be flying in, but the start of the game, I felt like we were a little bit careful, if that's the right word.
I think it was it's definitely a culture shock, wasn't it? But if you look at it, Chris, we can go back this season alone. Coventry performance was like this. You can look in the Premier League at Palace and Ipswich. When it seems to be a big game, look at who we've had to beat to get to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup and win in the first leg. When it's these big games against the big teams, we're all over it. We're all over it. We want to play. We're up for it. But when it comes to these type of games, whether Ange realised it or not is one thing. These players knew full well what was coming. They've all seen the FA Cup long enough. They know what it's about. They know the banana skins and this. I mean, the whole magic of it, as we all know, the goal at the start, the goal being taped up by 2 people being on shoulders and using the goalkeeper's tape. Is there anything more FA Cup third round than that, in all honesty? But the players know. And if people look at the history of the world, the FA Cup, and as we know, it's the biggest domestic cup around the world. Everyone in the world watches the FA Cup. They knew what was coming. They knew it. But the fight came and they weren't up for it at the beginning, were they? They weren't up for it. Like you said, they looked scared.
Brian, do you think that was a deliberate ploy to leave that hole in the goal net just to sort of put us off our game at the beginning of the match? It almost scored them a goal in the first minute. Maybe
the dark arts. Do you remember Jose Mourinho said we need to be something? The dark arts. Maybe it was some kind of dark. I wouldn't blame them. Use every trick in the book. Who knows, Adrian? But I won't put it past them.
Adrian, let's come to you. On 43 minutes, there was a lovely pass from Timo Werner, and I really don't want to turn this podcast into Timo Werner bashing. So I'm going to mention this moment because I felt like he put a wonderful ball into James Maddison, who shot at the goalkeeper. It was straight at the goalkeeper, which was frustrating. But we need to see more of this from Timo Werner. If he's going to get minutes under Ange Postecoglou, which Ange has already come out and said that Timo Werner's not going anywhere. He's going to be a Spurs player on loan until the end of the season. It'd be interesting to see what happens after that. I think all of us would fully expect him to go back to RB Leipzig at that point. But in these next couple of months until the end of the season, we need to see a lot more of this from Timo Werner, because we have seen moments from Werner. Take that moment at the Etihad when he outran Kyle Walker, crossed in, which we scored again at the Etihad. We need to see more moments like this from Werner, don't we?
Absolutely. I think it's psychological. I think there's something there. It's clearly confidence. We've all seen the clips of him scoring extraordinary goals earlier in his career. It's an incredible highlights reel when you look at it. He's played many internationals for his country, and not just any country, Germany. He has done some fabulous things for the side, for Tottenham, in his time at the club. Just particularly when he is in a goal-scoring position, there's a mental block there of some kind. It's heart-wrenching to see, because we all want him to succeed. I'm not one of these people who's been, attacking Werner, and it's just unfair to the player. He's clearly, he's been the one player who's been singled out by the manager and the whole time that Ange has been here. And it was in that game where he took him off at half time and said he needed more from him in a circumstance where we were in a crisis. But apart from that, he seems to work hard out in the field. He uses his pace. Today's an extraordinary situation. He was asked to play centre forward when we had to rest our centre forward. We didn't have Richarlison. Clearly, for whatever reason, Ange doesn't believe that Lancashire was ready to play in this match. It's just, it's heart-wrenching to see. He seems like a good guy who's doing his best, but and I agree with you, that assist was a good assist, and it was a shame that Maddison didn't put it away, because that would have been great for Werner's confidence. But, just seeing Werner coming back to one of his opportunities, he clearly had that one-on-one opportunity with the keeper later in the game that you'll probably come to, which, you just, everybody, the whole Tottenham fan base, I think, wanted that shot to go in, for him just to beat the keeper and just take the monkey off his back. Because the goal that he scored against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup that knocked them out at home was a fantastic, first-time strike. So he can do it. It is one of the stories of Ange's time at the club, that he brought in this player that clearly was down on confidence, brought him in on a loan, and was hoping to somehow turn the switch and bring out the best in him. And I have to admire Ange, because he's shown absolute belief in the player. But at the same time, our injury crisis has required us to play him even today at centre forward. We wouldn't be having this conversation if we didn't have Richarlison out, for this lengthy period of time. And I was sort of half wondering whether Ange might go against his own word and bring Richarlison in today's game once Werner was struggling. But I'm glad he held off and we got the result.
There's a few guys in the comments saying, stop bashing Timo Werner. I don't feel like we are. We're talking about the match incidents in the game where we feel like the player should have done a lot more. And I say on this podcast a lot that when a player gets an opportunity, and like you just said, Adrian, with the injury, suspensions and all the other problems that Ange has had at the club, when a player comes in, they've got to grab that opportunity. And I don't think that anyone can ever say that Ange Postecoglou has not given a number of opportunities to Timo Werner. And if I asked any Spurs fan, has he taken those opportunities? I think the answer is no. And I think that every single person could agree on that. Adrian, let's stay with you, because just before half-time, there was a little bit of a mix-up in the Spurs defence. Kinski slipped on the 3G pitch. And then at half-time, it was 0-0. Ange Postecoglou made no changes. How are you feeling at that halfway point? Because at that point, Spurs had 80% possession.
It was grim, I have to say. Seeing Maddison not score those goals, seeing Kinski have to pull off that save, seeing us slipping around on that surface a bit, clearly not comfortable with the surface. On the television where I was watching, it looked like there were icy bits on the pitch, so it was inconsistent as well as a surface. I was concerned about I felt like we were a real chance to get knocked out in that second half when I was sitting there watching at halftime. I absolutely, believed that we were going to get there by hook or by crook, but I was stressed.
Adrian, I've got to say that I thought exactly the same when I walked into the stadium about icy bits, but I can confirm there were no icy bits. It was just the lighting, and it was just that the pitch being a 3G pitch. Yeah. So there was no icy bits. Yeah.
Right.
Harry, let's come to you. At the start of the second half, James Maddison had another shot on target, which the goalkeeper saved. Their centre-back, shortly after, was running rings around Timo Werner and Pape Matar, which the home fans, really, really did enjoy. There was a lot of banter between the Tamworth and Tottenham fans today, and the Tamworth fans really did enjoy their day. How much credit would you give to Tamworth today?
Yeah, absolutely loads. As I said, I thought they were excellent and really held their own. A really spirited performance. And on another day, when there's replays, they would have got that and generated a lot of money for the club. So they can be proud going into work tomorrow morning, because of course, the majority of them are part-time. So a real good shift from them. But I think you've got to get that balance right of going, look, Spurs awful today, didn't do enough to test Tamworth. But however, credit to Tamworth and how they coped defensively and did cause us a few scares. Nothing more than that, but a few scares defensively. So yeah, they deserve credit for that. So does the manager, who's now become obviously full-time permanent. I thought the fans made it a difficult atmosphere for us, and Ange Postecoglou, as we saw, I love that moment right from the very start. So that was, we knew it was going to be tough. We knew that as Spurs fans that Tamworth would make it tough for us, but we also knew that Spurs being Spurs would also make it tough for ourselves. And both things proved, it's exactly what happened. But they deserve a lot of credit. They can be proud. They can feel maybe hard done by with the result in the end. But all that matters and all I care about is we're through to round 4. And, the focus, of course, shifts to North London Derby. But next time in the FA Cup, depending on who we get, the shift focused onto that fourth round game and getting through again to the 5th round and progressing and so on. We've got to end our trophy drought, and we've got to go strong in these competitions. But credit Tamworth, very good. Big day for the club, big day for the community.
Harry, in the opening 10 minutes of that second half, Mikey Moore put in a great cross for Timo Werner, who headed on target and it was cleared off the line. I don't want to go down the Timo Werner route again. I felt like he should have done a lot more and a lot better and scored that opportunity. I'll say it. But Mikey Moore, what did you make of him today? Because I felt in the first half he struggled, because I felt like the Tamworth players really went in hard on him in that first half. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. They probably recognise that he's the talent in the front three, and they've identified him and thought, right, how can we stop him? So that's, again, credit to Tamworth defensively, the manager and the system in the week. They only train twice a week, probably train more this week, being us. But that's real credit for them. They've obviously got their system right. But more, the front three were ineffective all game, in particular in that first half. But if you're going to give credit to anyone, it would be Mikey Moore for that second half, looking to make things happen. That's why, if I'm honest with you, I'm surprised that he was withdrawn rather than Werner. I know that Moore's obviously not long come back. He's been ill, in injury, etc. He's had varying, problems, but he was starting to cause a problem in that second half for Tamworth defensively. So, not the change I would have made, but it doesn't matter. We did win in the end. I personally thought Werner done all right from that chance. So we talk about confidence. If that got in, not a goal line clearance, and then it's a totally different situation that, we're talking about with him in terms of going forward with confidence. But Mikey Moore I was impressed with. But generally that front line at the moment, not just this game, but generally feels, whatever front three it is, really disconnected from the rest of the team, not quite joining up. And we said that a lot in the last few years with Spurs, whoever the front three's been, but it's not quite joining together. I felt Johnson, you wouldn't really know he was playing until he got that goal at the end. Really, really ineffective. So we've got to find our way. And I think, of course, a lot of it's the way we play. We really stretch the flanks, don't we? Play to the touchline. But the front three were ineffective. But if you had to give credit to any, Mikey Moore, it's just great to have him back. Great to have that extra option. And we know what he's capable of. It's time to give him minutes and see what he's capable of now. And, Arsenal, I think he won't necessarily start that, but he could come off the bench. And it's great to have the option, Chris, off the bench in these bigger games in the league and other competitions, which we haven't had because of injuries. So just as him as an option, what he's capable of is great to see. We saw, didn't we, in the Europa League, that's Mikey Moore. This is what we've got. We've got a talent on our hands. We've got to use him now in the right way. But it's great to have him back. And that second half performance, just shows what he's capable of.
Brian, on 55 minutes, Pedro Porro had a shot which went over the bar. 4 minutes later, the Tamworth crowd, what a roar it was at the Lamb Ground. I think that, at that near hour mark of the game, I think that the fans had real belief that they could perhaps go on to perhaps win this game against Spurs. And, they were really, really up for the fight, as I've said. They had a chance which was blocked. It went out for the corner. On 62 minutes, Mikey Moore had a shot on goal. What did you make of Mikey Moore today?
So first of all, with Mikey Moore, that was a phenomenal cross and run to set up Timo Werner, and is the exact crosses that we need to be giving Dominic Solanke,
Yes,
but never put them in when he's on the pitch. That's exactly what we need for Dominic Solanke.
Well said.
And that's what Mikey Moore can do. I think Mikey Moore, after that brilliant half in the European game when he played on the left and destroyed, can't remember the team it was right now, but destroyed that team at home. That's what we need to give Solanke. I think coming on and starting after all this time out, first half, I think they kept him quiet, but I think they kept all of us quiet, to be honest. But he grew and grew into the game, and it was just good to see him on the pitch and get minutes. And he was growing and growing into the game. The only issue was I wish Solanke was on the end of his cross rather than Timo.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for everyone watching and listening. I do have to mention Timo Werner. So if you are a fan, perhaps turn away for a couple of minutes. On 65 minutes, Timo Werner one-on-one with the goalkeeper, Brian.
Yeah.
You know what? It reminds me of the QPR. I think you were you were on that podcast.
I was.
During pre-season, one-on-one, and we spoke about it then. He should have done better. He should have done better today. A minute later, he had another chance, which was blocked. How would you describe Timo Werner's time at Tottenham? And keep it brief and short, because I don't want to keep bashing Timo Werner, but I feel like some of these opportunities, he needs to do a lot better.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Timo Werner, one-on-one, you'd expect him to put it away. Or any professional footballer going one-on-one like that, where he had time, space, could have taken it round the keeper. And do you know what? The way I would sum up Timo Werner, I'm not even going to blame him. I'm going to blame the club for re-signing him. He didn't do well enough in his first spell, and then it comes to re-signing him when we should have gone and got a proper winger, and the club have brought him in again. Whether that be on the manager, the scouting network, whoever it be, we re-signed him, seeing what he'd done in his first spell. And I don't understand. Listen, Werner has not been a good player for Tottenham Hotspur. He really hasn't. But what this comes down to is this football club re-signing him and thinking anything better is going to come of it. So as much as people want to criticise Werner, and in some instances, totally right on his footballing ability and what he's done, not personally, but the foot of the blame lies at this football club for re-signing him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure he will go back to RB Leipzig in the summer. We can't sign him for a third time, can we, Brian?
Not. Don't never say never with this football club. Never say never with this football club. But I just, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
No, it can't. It can't happen. It can't happen. Adrian, let's come to you on 68 minutes. Sarr and Moore went off. Bergwijn and Solanke came on. As I mentioned earlier, it's a shame that a player like Dominic Solanke had to come on in this game, because Ange Postecoglou has said so many times, hasn't he? The amount of running that Dominic Solanke has done this season. His hold-up play has been absolutely brilliant. What did you make of the sub at that point? Did you think that was going to be enough to get Tottenham over the line inside the 90 minutes?
Yeah, I was really hoping that someone could just give one decent ball into Solanke, even a half chance that he would just slot away. And I was a bit concerned that he was coming on, because, I think he has worked so hard. I don't think I've ever seen a centre forward in the Premier League work as hard as he has worked this season. He has carried such a huge load, and yet he's still had classy finishes and great work in his skill, despite obviously at times being exhausted from the amount of pressing he's done. I think we should rename him Saint Dominic because he really deserves that moniker. I was really excited to see Bergwijn come back on. I'm so excited about that player. And again, I thought he just brought a great energy into the midfield. I thought Bissouma had kind of held us together somewhat in front of the defenders. But we needed a spark to generate something going into attack. And I thought Bergwijn did that really well. He just brought the energy that he always brings. He's always positive. He's always looking to move forward. He's always looking to hustle. And he's good. He's good defensively as well. So I thought we needed both of those things, a bit more sort of killer instinct on those 50-50 challenges. And so I thought they were good changes that Ange made. Unfortunately, he was forced to make them because we just had not been able to put the ball in the net. And I'm sure he wouldn't have made those changes, certainly not Solanke, if we'd been in front at that point. And yet, really, poor old Dom didn't really get a sniff of a chance, to be honest, in the time that he was on before the 90 minutes. He you know, it was tough out there. It was a really tough contest. And, you know, some of the crosses, I thought Brennan Johnson's use of the ball, putting the ball into the middle was just subpar today. He just kind of blazed away. And Solanke's just going to need better service than that if we're going to consistently squeeze goals out of him, because he's clearly a class finisher when you give him the opportunity.
Adrian, talking about Brennan Johnson, he had a chance in the 72nd minute when a cross came over and he hit the side netting. It looked like a dead cert goal. Should he have done better there?
I thought so. I thought the ball that came over to him was just probably could have been better. It was a Reguilon. Reguilon didn't quite hit the cross right. And it just sort of went a bit higher than it needed to. That said, I think about players from other clubs who are at the very top in the title race, who are playing in Europe, who have got a right winger coming in that situation, and would we expect them to put it away? And I think, you know, the best players in the world will always will just slam that ball into the net, even though it was a bit high for him. And you know, I just think Johnson's still young, and he's just gonna have to keep improving his finishing. But to be able to take us to where Ange Postecoglou wants us to take us, we have to put those chances away.
Yeah.
Maddison has to put away the chances, at least one of the chances he had. Johnson's got to put that chance away. We have to be able to finish off teams. We've lost games to lower teams this year, particularly early in the season, or drawn against Leicester, where we just have not put gilt-edged chances away, despite lots of good build-up play. Now, I think over time that will come, but at some point, players who have had repeated opportunities and have not taken those opportunities, as you've said, Chris, from time to time, there's competition. When we've got a fully fit squad, some of those players maybe won't be in the first team.
Harry, let's come to you. On 76 minutes, Tamworth had a shot on target, comfortable for Kingsky. On 78 minutes, Timo Werner. And this is what got a really big groan from the Tottenham Hotspur away end. I think we all expected him to a really good pass inside the box, but he ballooned it in the air, which was really, really bizarre at that point. And then a couple of minutes later, Timo Werner, another misplaced pass. And I'm sorry for all of the Timo Werner fans out there for bringing up these, but they are facts. This is what happened in the game. On 85 minutes, Bergval, misplaced pass. He put it completely out of play. I wrote down at this point, Harry, that I felt like Spurs, some of our players looked tired. And I felt like, and this was discussed in the away end by a number of fans, that we felt that the more that the game went on, Tamworth would feel tired. Because let's face it, and no disrespect here, you've got guys who work in factories, you've got guys who work in shops, you've got people who do normal jobs. These are part-time players playing against a Premier League team. Were you surprised at this point?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was surprised that they hold their own for that long. I thought we'd get to the hour mark and they'd start to tire. And the reality is they went 90 minutes really without tiring. It was only their first period of extra time towards the end of it where I really noticed they start to, tire and drop a little bit deeper. They did drop a little bit deeper in the 90 minutes, but they didn't really look tired. So that is credit to Tamworth, but also we didn't test them. A team tires when they've been worked hard and just, by keeping possession. The amount of possession we had, Chris, I mean, you talked about numbers earlier, like in that first half, 80%. We just didn't do enough with it. We didn't move the ball quick enough to tire them. So it's quite easy for them and their goalkeeper. There goes the stats there. In the end, 77.4% possession. But I didn't really think we looked like scoring until, that second phase of extra time. And that's what is really concerning. So Tamworth, fair play to them. But it is quite embarrassing, I think, for the Spurs players on the pitch, in particular established ones, that go, do you know what? It's been, Tamworth have held their own and they've made it hard for us. We knew that would be the case, but we've actually really struggled and needed the big guns off the bench, the real big guns, to get the job done. So credit to Tamworth at the same time, but I'm glad that we've gone through, but the performance isn't good. We don't want this to come fourth round, similar kind of tie, and the same situation occur. We want those performances to be there as well as the results, because you have a better chance, of course, of getting those results. But we got the win. That's all that matters. But performance-wise, it wasn't too convincing, and I think some of those performances he won't get into the Tamworth team. So we knew it was going to be tough. We knew that it wasn't going to be easy. We knew that the atmosphere, they'd try and make it as tough as possible. We knew it'd be a tough start to the game. That's no surprise for me. 20 seconds in, Kinski had to make a save. But it's the fact it took us so long to really control the game, and there was periods in that second half where we just couldn't get our, not necessarily saying we couldn't get our foot on the ball, but we couldn't create, we couldn't make things happen with a sustained period. Every time Tamworth were getting out and getting a tackle in, and I thought the referee let a lot go. I understand why, the occasion, but I felt that it felt like we had 7 or 8 players today up against a massive wall, because it felt like Werner at times, I don't like to keep bringing it up, but it felt like we were one man lighter, and then the referee, not a lot went our way. Then you got Dragusin, like, for example, and Porro and Regulon give away silly, unnecessary fouls, what Tamworth are looking for, going down easily anyway. So, yeah, not happy with that performance, Chris, if I'm honest with you, in particular the established players in an injury crisis. But we're through. That's all that matters. 2 wins in a row now.
Well, I'm sorry to mention Timo Werner again, but in the 90th minute, Timo Werner, poor touch, poor cross, and then booed by the away fans yet again. When the board went up, plus 6 minutes, the Tamworth fans actually sang to Ange Postecoglou, "You're getting sacked in the morning," and the away fans then sang back and went, "Your players are going to work in the morning," which I thought was quite funny. There's a good bit of banter in the crowd. Harry, I know you've got to leave us now at this point. We've still got a little bit to talk about, so thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon.
All the best. Thanks, guys. Big up panel and the chat as well.
See you later, Harry.
Brian, let's come
Yes,
to
sir.
you. Tamworth had a couple of chances just before the full-time whistle, before it went to extra time. How were you feeling at this point? Because I tell you what, in the away end, you know what it's like. A lot of fans say, a lot of things and say, what's coming. What's coming. Yep. We were all fearing the worst.
I'm just trying to remember, Chris. Was that one that came off the guy's knee? And was that one of the ones just before the end, or was that inside? When that happened, I saw Kinski moving back. I was like, oh no, not like this. But thankfully, he got there. The longer and longer it went on, it had smash and grab written all over it, didn't it? It really did have one of those olden day ones, like when Coventry went out to Sutton, like when Arsenal went out to Wrexham, like when we went out to Colchester in an Carabao Cup or whatever it was called back then. The longer and longer it went on, that feeling creeps, and you can't help it. That's the magic of the FA Cup, not just with Spurs, with anything. It was getting concerning, and you could hear the unrest in the away fans. I think that's sacked in the morning, then you're going to work in. That's what the banter of the FA Cup is. What it's all about. Yeah, it's all about having that good banter. But yeah, it got concerning, and that knee that came off the guy's shin or knee, that would have just been the typical way, wouldn't it? But thankfully, they didn't take advantage of those chances, and then, I can't remember saying this. Thankfully, it went into extra time.
I'll tell you what, Brian, a part of me feels really gutted for Tamworth, because what a money day they would have had, a replay at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, had those still been the rules.
Yeah, I mean, the FA Cup is that kind of thing. I understand why they've taken it away. But then, obviously, I think they had the option to have it at our ground, didn't they, anyway? But they said, no, they want it at the Lamb, and fair play to them. It's a huge payday for them, TV-wise, revenue-wise, everything. So fair play to them. But yeah, that's where the magic of the Cup and having these replays has gone a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah. Adrian, let's come to you. So obviously after 90 minutes, it was 0-0. Son, Kulusevski, and then Jed Spence, they all came on. Timo Werner, Maddison, and Dragusin all went off. Before I ask you about the players that came on, what did you make of Dragusin's performance today?
He seemed to be. I think Brian referred to it as UFC. He he was kind of getting caught up in some physical battles there, and I was a bit concerned that he might kind of do something rash. And I was a bit concerned. I feel like he looked a little bit tired today, and a little bit like he was playing one too many games in a row. Incredibly, Archie Gray seemed to be the cool, wise head of the two of them. Mind you, Dragusin's only 22 years old, so he's really only a pup himself. Look, I've got a lot of time for Dragusin. He's a kind of much more kind of old, what I would call old school defender. And I think it's been an adjustment for him to sort of play in this system with Ange. And I don't know that he's as strong in some of the areas that that Ange's system perhaps requires, including just his use of the ball. But he seems to be, he's really stepped up in this period when we've needed him. And to be the senior partner with Archie Gray in this period of time has been really impressive. And I've got a huge amount of time for Radu. I thought his, just going back to the previous game, his goal line save with his left foot that enabled Kinski to keep a clean sheet in his first game was extraordinary and really defining. Actually, I have to say, I referred to Kinski as a cool Scandinavian before. Obviously, I know he's Czech, but he just reminded me of kind of like Bjorn Borg, like the cool Swede. And I just wanted to mention the rebound off the knee that could have easily lobbed over. I mean, if it had just rebounded a bit harder, Kinski was a fair way off his line. It would have been unsavable because it was, there was enough room between the goalkeeper and the crossbar for that to easily lob over him without Kinski being able to do a thing about it. And yet here we are after a 3-0 win, and I'm sitting here going, maybe that's our turning point in the destiny of the club, because so many times for Spurs, that would have actually just popped over the goalkeeper's head, gone in, and we would have lost 1-0. The fact that that it didn't happen, I sort of almost couldn't believe it. I could not believe that rebound off the knee didn't go in.
Well, the fact that we're still in all the cup competitions at this stage of the season, Adrian, that is a huge plus because we couldn't have said that last year. Adrian, at this point when Son, Kulusevski and Spence came on, you surely must have thought at this point that these guys are going to come and and do the job and get the job done for us.
Yeah, I thought when those changes happened, I thought we were going to win the game. I've been so impressed with Spence. What an extraordinary player. I mean, how he's been out of the side for so long, I don't know, because clearly that was before Postecoglou's time as well. But Spence has such a calm demeanour. He's so skillful. He's able to press up the field and set up play. Defensively seems to be much more capable than Porro when he's playing at right back. And I think he's going to really challenge both Destiny and Pedro Porro in each of those positions when everyone's fully fit. So I was really pleased that he was on. I think he gives us some stability there, and including when he's played centre back. And then, as I said earlier, I thought Kulusevski's class was the game-changing, the difference that changed the game. And then, sorry, who was the third player you were just mentioning there, Chris?
Son, Kulusevski.
Son. And then, I just thought, Son initially looked like he was struggling with the surface and I was, a bit concerned. But then the class came out and he did a few things that really troubled their defence. And by that stage, they did start to just look a bit tired. I thought for the 90 minutes, Tamworth seemed to incredibly just keep up the physicality of the game, the whole and run and chase and push and pull. So the combination of those three players, I thought, did make a significant difference, and that really turned the game. And I felt once they came on, we were going to win that game.
Brian, let's come to you. Let's talk about Tottenham's first goal, and of course, it was an own goal. Pedro Porro with a free kick out to Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson then crossed it. Bergval and Solanke were in the middle, but it seemed to hit the defender and of course went in, own goal, 1-0. How are you feeling at this point? What did you make of the goal?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of credit needs to be taken for the different set piece. I literally thought Porro was running up to literally try and smash that on goal in the top corner. I didn't see that pass coming off a million miles away. So it's nice to see that we actually tried a different kind of set piece.
Yeah.
Finally, thankfully, we got the goal, which you thought was Solanke's, but unfortunately for the defender, it trickled in off of him, but it was sheer relief. It was sheer relief that it gone in, and after that, there was only going to be one winner. What I did like about that was the variety of set piece that we tried.
Should credit go to Brennan Johnson? What did you make of his performance today, Brian?
I've defended Brennan, and I really do think there's a player there, but I think we're playing him wrong as a football club. At Forest, when he was thriving, he played on the counter attack. And obviously, we don't play that style of football. His work rate needs to improve, and his crossing certainly does. But again, it was another performance from him in a game where hopefully you would have seen him stand out. Another one that could have grabbed the chance. But what I will say is he took the third goal very, very well. That's what he can do. But I just think we're playing him in the wrong position. I still think if we play him, I'd have rather seen him in the middle today, in all honesty, at the start, if we weren't going to play Lancashire. But he's got areas he greatly needs to improve. But without his goals, where would we be this season?
Yeah, he's been huge. I mean, that succession of goals he scored was absolutely crucial to our season. I mean, where would we be without those? So you're absolutely right, Brian.
That's it.
Brian, I'm going to stay with you for the second goal because it was probably the best move of the game. On 107 minutes. Hun-Min Son, of course, assisting Dejan Kulusevski. Spence giving the ball to Son previously. But what do you make of Kulusevski's finish? Because another great finish from him today. I feel like he's been our player of the season so far. And I say this week by week now. I feel like we are seeing a very, very different Dejan Kulusevski to what we have seen in previous seasons.
Oh, without a doubt. He is our player of the season. And it's not even close. It's not. He's a million miles ahead of everyone. And I last season, seeing him at the right, said if we can get money for him to bring someone else in, do it. But we've moved him into his preferred position. And my God, am I thankful that we kept him. He has been absolutely exceptional for us. Without him, God knows where we'd be. It's like he's got 3 lungs as well, isn't it? He just doesn't tire. He has been a cut above the rest, and he has been. It's a shame that he needs to come on in games like this to help us get the job done, and can't take a well-deserved rest. Without him, we're a shadow of ourselves going forward. I think he's been absolutely brilliant for us this season, and that goal and the class he showed just showed how vital he is to Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian, let's talk about our third goal. Of course, it came in the 118th minute. Brennan Johnson finishing. What do you make of this one?
Look, I mean, it was a beautiful finish. I think he gave him the eyes to as if he was shooting to the right, and he then shot to the left. And it was just a clinical finish, which, you know, for all the reasons that Brian's just said. I mean, Brennan Johnson clearly has that quality, and he's scored numerous goals this year where he's finished beautifully with that right foot. It was interesting when Kulusevski sort of stole the ball from the defender there. My initial view of that was that he might have clipped him and fouled him, and I was kind of half expecting they might call that back because the defender went down. But it was a classic little sort of pocket steal from Kulusevski, which he does so often. Just when a player on the other team seems to be in control of the ball, he just gets a toe in that steals the ball away from them. And that was just another example where he turned a kind of 1% opportunity into a goal assist, basically. And it was a big relief, I have to say, because look, even from the point of view of the optics of this match, and as I say, the frenzy of media and social media, I think if we'd come away with a 2-0 win, you know, there would have been probably a lot more criticism, a lot more histrionics about how we just scraped through. I just felt like getting a 3-0 win, having that on the score sheet. Not everybody would have watched the game. People who see this tomorrow or tonight in England and see that it was 3-0, you know, it's a pretty convincing victory. I know Manchester City won 8-0, but 3-0 on the score sheet, if people aren't following the actual match and whether it went into extra time, is convincing. So I felt it was important to be able to just ice that. And I thought he was a real iceman in that moment. He just slotted that away. His finish was beautiful.
Now, we've also got to talk about the FA Cup fourth round draw that is coming shortly. And we're also going to preview the Arsenal game that takes place on Wednesday. But Adrian, I want to take this opportunity to ask you about the song that you are going to be releasing soon, because it's all about believe in Ange Postecoglou, believe in Tottenham Hotspur. Do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I believe in this project. I've followed the club since 1981, and I know the history of the club. I've experienced all the highs and lows and the many frustrations over many years. And I've also followed Ange Postecoglou's career. From his playing days when he was a winning captain in the Australian National Football League, and then all of his coaching career. And I feel like it's a really special project, and we're going through a really tough time. But I do believe that he's going to take us to being. He's going to change the destiny of the club, and we've just got to give him time. And I think we've seen, in my opinion, enough. Particularly when we've won against significant sides, that if we can give the project time and enable him to develop that squad further, including developing the players that we have, but also bringing in talent to bolster the squad, I think we can go all the way. I think we can become a title-winning side under Ange if we can give him that time. So anyway, he said something last year in a press conference that kind of inspired me to. I write songs as a kind of hobby, and inspired me to write a song. I sang it to a few people, and they really liked it, including people who didn't sort of follow football, and they asked if they could sing it along with me. And so I've had a bunch of people in England and a bunch of people in Australia who've been singing it with me, and so it's got a bit of a head of steam. And so they've encouraged me to release it, and so that's what I'm going to do, Chris. And I'll give it to you first. It'll be ready in a few weeks' time, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with the world, and hope that Tottenham supporters who like it might sing along with it and adopt it as their own.
We look forward to it, Adrian. Really do look forward to seeing that and hearing it. Brian, do you agree with Adrian that Spurs can be title contenders under Ange Postecoglou?
If he gets backed, seriously backed. You never know. I have defended Ange the whole time. I've said I'll never turn my back on the manager, and I still haven't. It is a results-based business, and they haven't been acceptable. But look what he's working with. Look what he's working with, and the injuries. Can he do it? Only time will tell. Will he get the time? We'll have to wait and see. But for instance, right now, I think it's clear to see he needs some players in. Desperately needs some players in this January, or the deadline is up until February the 3rd this year. I saw a tweet from Swiss Rambles that literally we could spend $250 million and still not be touching or breaching FFP, PSR, all the other initials you want to use. Well, let's go do it. Let's go give Ange the players he needs and wants and let him build. But the results have got to improve in the Premier League. That's for damn sure.
Brian, I think it's fair to say that we all know that the results in the Premier League must improve, and Ange Postecoglou said on so many occasions now leading up to the transfer window, which of course we're in the middle of, and he said that we need help. What help do you think that Postecoglou will get before the 3rd of Feb, which of course is the transfer deadline day this year at 11 p.m?
That we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, there's all this talk about Mawani, isn't there? I mean, if I had my choice of players that we could bring in positionally wise, I'd bring in a left back and a winger that can deliver those balls to Solanke as priority. I think we need a Silva. Sorry, not Silva. David Luiz. And I think Solanke needs help. But can we get all these done in this window? That's the thing. But I think the left back has to come in as a priority, and a winger would be my top two.
Adrian, as you know, I love talking to people from Australia that people have really followed Ange Postecoglou's career, because you guys have seen him always be the underdog, always prove people wrong. Can you talk us through that a little bit about how Ange has proved so many people wrong at so many different clubs? Because, of course, us being Spurs fans, we have seen win now managers such as Jose Mourinho come through the door, winning a trophy everywhere he's been. Antonio Conte doing very similar. What do you think is going to be different with Ange at Spurs for everything to click and everything to work?
Look, I just want to put it in perspective here. We all know that he's come from, lower leagues, the Australian League, the Japanese League, and the Scottish League. I think I might have made this point in the past, Chris, that every manager who's won in leagues that are lesser leagues than the English Premier League before they join the English Premier League, they still have to prove themselves in the English Premier League. And it's not just a manager, it's a combination of the squad that he's got at his disposal, the extent to which he's backed by his club to be able to bring in the players that he wants and have the time to develop the players that he has. So for historical perspective, I just think we've got to always come back to a time before social media when Alex Ferguson had been a winning manager in Scotland and then he went to Manchester United. Now, he didn't win a title at Manchester United until his 7th season. In their first season, they finished 11th under Alex Ferguson, then 2nd. But then in their 3rd season, they finished 11th again. Then Manchester United finished 13th in Alex Ferguson's 4th season. And in that season, fans were calling for his sacking, as was the media. And the club stood by him. They had an injury-racked season. They'd been gradually developing the squad over that time. Now, okay, so what happened in his next season, his 5th season, after finished 13th and still keeping his job? They finished 6th. So even today, that wouldn't have got him in the Premier League placings, in the European Champions League placings for the following season. Then in his next season, his 6th season, they finished 2nd. And finally, in his 7th season, they won. We're either in the business of a genuine rebuild in which we're trying to change the destiny of the club, or we're not. And yes, Ange has tried to play a particular brand of football, which probably his squad is not ready for yet, and could have been much more pragmatic in his first 18 months as a manager and said, yeah, we're going to grind out some results and we're going to, park the bus in some matches because we've got a depleted squad. And he's just been very open about this. And he said, I'm not doing it because what I'm trying to do is instill a system and philosophy and mindset, for better or worse, because in the long term, that is what it's going to take to be a title-winning team. He's always taken that approach in his career, and he changed the game in Australia. He transformed the game in Australia. Then he took the Australian national team to its first ever win of a major trophy, beating Son's South Korea in the final. And then he went to Japan, and the team he managed in their 2nd season won the championship, and they hadn't won a championship for 15 years. So, and we saw what he did at Celtic. So we understand that it is a radical and adventurous and risk-taking system of play and philosophy. What have we got to lose? What does Tottenham Hotspur have to lose? We have won 2 titles in 142 years, Chris. What do we have to lose? In fact, people have been, saying we're going to end up in a relegation battle this year. Bring it on. Bring it on. Let's build some character in that playing squad, in the club administration, and in the supporter base, because once we've been through this fire and this injury crisis and the attacks on the manager, nothing will stop us once we get through it and we start to get some momentum. Because if I hadn't seen the promise when we've played well, if I hadn't seen a system of play that can challenge the best teams, I probably wouldn't be speaking this enthusiastically. But I have seen us, when we've been at our best, we have played extraordinary football. We've scored lots of goals, and we have a really, really young squad. Every week, I see Archie Gray, I see Bergval, I see Brennan Johnson. I see these really young players who are coming through. The future is really bright. We just need to be patient, stick together as a club, stick together as a supporter base, and believe. And with patience and persistence, we're gonna have a chance at doing this. And we've just got to trust and take our time about it.
Brian, I can tell by your face you want to react to some of what Adrian has said there, because I know we've spoken at length about patience. And you've said a lot about the board before, but is it about the patience with the manager and Postecoglou?
Adrian raises a load of incredible points, a real load of incredible points. That what I will say is football is obviously very different to what it was Fergie time, the demands of it, the money involved, everything. But he's bang on. It comes to patience, which is one thing that this club have never had. I've been saying the whole time that I just don't want another guy to come in because I don't trust this board to get it right. And I still stand by that. I absolutely stand by it. And I agree with a lot of what Adrian is saying. I really do. But like we said, it's a results-based business. Those results need to pick up. He's hampered with these injuries. There's no doubt about it, although other teams have done. He's got to use rotation a bit more because he's saying that he hasn't got the players when he has had the chance. Like Adrian alluded to with Spence, for example. Spence just being one of them. Reggie there on the left wing to help Destiny. But a manager does need time. I look at it and I've said when Arsene Wenger came in, he needed time. There's managers that have come in like Klopp and others that needed time to build where they got, but they got the backing from their owners. They were able to do what they wanted, and it works. And I'm tired of seeing Spurs just hire and fire. And then it's always different managers with different philosophies. So there's no straight pathway. And I really, really hope that Ange can get this right. I really, really hope he gets the backing he deserves. I really, really hope that these players can come in and do a job for him. And only time will tell. But what I have to say that I agree with a lot what Adrian has said. It's whether this club will do it. And we know they have a tendency not to. But in lighter notes, Arsenal are at the FA Cup, so we can all smile at that.
I was just going to say that, Brian. We're literally waiting for the FA Cup draw to react to our fourth round draw. It was meant to be taking place after the Arsenal v Manchester United game. Of course, it went to extra time. It was 1-1. After extra time, it went to penalties, and Manchester United have won 5-3 on penalties. So it has turned out to be a good day. Tottenham are through to the fourth round, and Arsenal are out of the competition. Which now brings me on to, while we're waiting for the draw, which is now literally just seconds away, let's talk a little bit about the Arsenal game. Brian, we'll start with you. On Wednesday at the Emirates. Of course, Arsenal at the moment are second in the Premier League, 40 points from 20 matches. Tottenham Hotspur are down in 12th. We have 24 points from 20 matches. As we all know, we've only ever, and I hate to say this stat, but it is a fact, we've only won once since they have moved to the Emirates, once in the Premier League. It's not good enough at our record at the Emirates. What are you thinking ahead of this game on Wednesday? Because it's going to be difficult, isn't it? But as I've just mentioned, they're out of the FA Cup. And they lost 2-0 midweek to Newcastle in the League Cup. So could they be heading to the final? Can they turn it around at St James's Park? We'll wait and see, after being 2-0 down. But what game are you expecting on Wednesday evening?
Well, first of all, let's hope we can make it a hat-trick of home defeats for them. Wouldn't that be lovely? I always say when we go to the Emirates, you alluded to it, that our percentage of winning there is not good enough. I remember going to the last season, the 2-2 draw there, and it was my first time at the Emirates. And I always say going into that game, you know what, just put in a performance. Put in a performance, leave blood, sweat, and tears on that pitch. And if the better team wins, so be it, because we have had so many calamitous performances there. And in the 2-2, I thought we were magnificent last season there. Absolutely magnificent. And in all honesty, I think we deserved the 3 points. I thought we were robbed. I just pray every game when we go there. I mean, obviously, us both having extra time and penalties, them going to penalties is a godsend for us. From what I heard as well, Jesus went off in the first half and it's a serious injury. So that's him out. And obviously, no one likes to see a serious injury to any player of any team. I just hope we can go there and put a performance. If we can put in a performance, the run they're in, then we've got every chance. We've got every chance. That's all I ask at the Emirates. Go there, put in a performance to be proud of, and then the result will take care of itself.
So many different players and so many different managers, though, Brian, have gone to the Emirates, and we've failed to get a result there. What is it about these grounds? Because I feel like I say this on the podcast a lot. You know, grounds like Liverpool, for example, Chelsea, Arsenal. These are 3 grounds that I can pick out immediately. Are grounds that we really do struggle at. Why? Why do we struggle at these places?
So I'm going to revert back to Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso, they did a season of this or an episode of this, but they go to Everton and they had and they go and win it. But that's the humour side of it. But I actually think when it comes down to it, this is a mentality problem, because, like you said, it's not the players that have been there every single season. I mean, you look at it. When we last won at the Filth in the Premier League, Harry Redknapp was the manager. Look at the players that have been at our football club that have gone to that ground since then, and Stamford Bridge and Anfield, as you said. I think they play the occasion, not the game. I think, honestly, it's become a mentality thing, and this is where I think Spurs are really lacking. I would love us in the next couple of weeks of the window to bring in some 30-year-old, 31-year-old, whatever players that have got it up here, that have got standards, that have got the brains, that have got the mentality, that set the standards and say this isn't acceptable. Forget where we're playing. This is the occasion for the fans. Our occasion is on the pitch. We are better than the 11 on the pitch, or we should be able to give them a game. I think this is a whole mentality thing and culture thing at the club. This isn't, the players and managers should have been doing better, but I think it's in their heads before we even kick off at these grounds.
Adrian, how many times have you seen Ange Postecoglou sign experienced players, older players, like Brian's mentioned there, like 31-year-olds with a lot of experience, you know, particularly at Ange's previous clubs? How often has that happened, or does he always want to build for the future by signing young players?
I haven't followed signings closely, but each of the sides he's had has had a blend of experience and youth. You've got to also realise that I don't think he's ever coached at any club for more than 2 or 3 seasons. He's always had short tenures and then taken another opportunity at another club or to coach the national team in Australia. So he's never, ever built a side over a number of years. Now, my understanding of the bargain that was struck here with the club when he was offered the role, and just listening to him speak in his press conferences, was that this was a rebuild and that this was a long-term project. So I suppose, I think if he has the choice, he'll probably still choose youth over a 31 or 32-year-old. But I think there's a sweet spot of the type of player that Brian's describing, who maybe isn't in their early 30s, but perhaps mid to late 20s, who, I absolutely, that we clearly need to be looking for, because if you've got too many young players, you are at risk of some, a series of very bad results just through lack of physicality or lack of experience. But, we clearly at the moment don't have that kind of on-field leadership that I think if we had it, for example, we wouldn't have lost to Brighton after being up 2-0 at half-time, for example. And I think I've mentioned that in a previous podcast, Chris, that I just remember watching, my sense of it was Ange just stood and watched what what the players were doing in that second half, rather than intervening, just to see whether there was some on-field leadership that was going to stand up. So Brian's absolutely right that we need that. Now, we either just sort of batten down the hatches and just let the young players that we have develop and grow into those roles, and this baptism of fire that they've had will have helped that. I'm prepared for that, as long as we're not calling for his sacking every second week over the next 2 years while we continue to grow through that inconsistency. But I feel like at the moment we need a bit more balance, and we do need some more sort of tough metal in there with more experience. Some of these more physical teams are going to bully us out of games. And I think that's my sense, Brian, is that that's what you're referring to there. We can't afford to just get bossed in some of those big matches, or indeed in against some of the lower sides who are going to play physically against us and just boss us out of the game.
Well, Adrian, you look at it, where I was going with it as well, if you look at it, we have won, like Chris said, twice at the Emirates since it's been built. And Chris, I think it was like 2005. It's ridiculously long ago they moved into there, or whatever it was.
I think from the top of my head, they moved in 2006. We won in 2010. We were 2-0 down. We won 3-2. And, of course, we won once in the Carabao Cup as well, the Galley.
With Delhi, what's the goal? And that's the thing. And then we've been here 5 years. We've been here 5 years.
The FA Cup draw, fourth round for Tottenham Hotspur, we will be facing Aston Villa away.
Oh, gee. Well, do you know what? First of all, I'm quite happy with that. It's like we'll go to a Premier League team and we'll fight. Yeah. We'll fight. We'll play. I'm actually quite happy we've got a Premier League team. I'm actually delighted we've got a Premier League team.
That's going to be another tough game. Of course, we won 4-0 last year in the Premier League at Villa Park. But what I was going to talk about, Adrian, let's come to you on this. With these grounds that I mentioned, in particular, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, of course. Arsenal we travel to on Wednesday. Liverpool we've got to travel to in just under 4 weeks now for the Carabao Cup semi-final second leg. We need points in the Premier League right now. And like you've mentioned, about a lot of fans stating that they want Ange out. It was great to see the backing and the singing of Ange Postecoglou's name on Wednesday after the Liverpool game. And that happened today as well, which was really nice. I love to see that support from the manager. But how important is it that we have, we need to go to places like this and put in a performance, like Brian said, show absolutely everything in a game, and most importantly, win the match, because at the moment we're sitting in 12th place. Factually, we are closer to the relegation zone in terms of points rather than the top four, and that is not what we're used to.
Yeah, it's a shame that we're sort of having to hope that we can beat Arsenal away from home, because we've lost points against lower teams that have really put us in this difficult position. It's tantalising, this game against Arsenal, because it feels like they're just not quite at their best at the moment. And I feel that our team having been through what it's been through, they seem to come up against the stronger teams with better performances. So I'm hopeful that we'll show something special, and it might kickstart the second half of our season. I do think there's a chance of that, despite the historic record of losses away against Arsenal. Similarly, on paper, we shouldn't beat Arsenal. In fact, we should, given ladder position and given the state of our squad compared with theirs, and the time that Arteta has had ahead of Ange to actually build that squad into a system of play that is working. On paper, we should lose to Arsenal and we should lose to Liverpool in the return leg of the Carabao Cup. That's the reality. So if people are just being objective about it, if we lose both of those games, people just need to breathe, suck it up, and go and focus on the next, really the next stage of the season. Having said that, I think we're a chance to beat Arsenal, and I think we're a chance to come away having knocked out Liverpool out of the Carabao Cup.
Brian, I'm just going to ask Adrian one more question, and he can get back to bed before he goes to work. And Brian, I'll ask you. Let me. You can be thinking about it. The starting 11 that you would like to face Arsenal on Wednesday. So you have a think about that. I'll come to you in a second. Adrian, lastly for you, let's get your reaction on the draw, Aston Villa away in the FA Cup.
I think it's a good, it's a good outcome for us based on what we've done under Ange so far. I mean, we've had a really good record against Aston Villa, including, as you said, Chris, beating them convincingly at Villa Park last year. So, and one of our best performances this year was our win against them. So we seem to match up against them pretty well. Now, having said that, it's going to be a really, really significant tie. They're going to give everything they have to that because they've fallen back a bit this year. And so the FA Cup's going to be important to Aston Villa. So I think it's going to be a really, really great challenge for us. I back us to win that. As I've said to you, I think Ange is going to win a trophy in his second season. It's good to know that we're in the mix on 3 cup competitions, and I back us to beat Aston Villa in that game.
So you're still thinking we're going to win a trophy this season, Adrian, yeah?
Yeah.
Brian, what team would you like to see Ange Postecoglou put out? Because, of course, Richarlison is meant to be back for this game. Would you like to see him on the sub-bench? What do you think the starting 11 will be?
Right, well, obviously, Kinski's in goal. Let's say the ones that I think we know are going to happen. Dragusin and Gray as centre-back. I think there's a big question mark. Do you play Spence on the right or the left? He's going to have to play. Porro, who was not good today, let's face it, but do you start him and put Spence left, or is there another way? Midfield, I actually want to see Bergwijn start. I really want to see Bergwijn start. Kulu has to start. And then up top, I think it will be, Solanke will definitely be in and Sonny will definitely be in. It's who do you play at right wing? It's if Kulusevski's in the middle, I think it's going to have to be Johnson, isn't it? Or who knows, Mawani might be here. No, of course not.
Sarcasm.
Me? Sarcasm? What are you talking about? But yeah, I'd love to see Bergwijn start. I really would. I think Bergwijn could do really well in this game. I think he's another player that isn't getting the credit he deserves because he's growing game after game after game. I think what he has to look out for is he's got that Dele Alli in him, hasn't he? And he's picking up some reckless yellow cards that are going to tally up. But I'd love to see him. I'd love to see Bergwijn start. So there's my spine of the team. Joe, who do you start left? Do you start Sonny?
It's very difficult, Brian, isn't it? Under various managers, I would say that you could virtually pick the starting 11 and get it right. Yeah. And I feel like Ange Postecoglou is very, very difficult to predict.
He is, but you look at. I'm just thinking we need to get service into Solanke, especially knowing how good Gabriel and Saliba are. We need to be able to make sure we get some balls into him, just like Porro did for the Newcastle game. Yeah. You can't defend that. You can't defend that. If we try and do these crosses across the box, who knows? But we need to try and find a way to get the service to Solanke in that game because he's vital. He's vital with his hold-up play as well.
Is Glenn Hoddle available?
Gazza. Let's get Gazza and Hoddle in that midfield, Adrian.
We could talk for hours naming all these players. Let's get score prediction from you. Brian, let's start with you.
I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go for a Desmond. Like
Adrian?
Last season.
I'm backing Kinski to have his 3rd clean sheet, and we're going to win 1-0.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? What a way to end the podcast. A 1-0 win at Arsenal. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I hope you're right, Adrian. Adrian, get some sleep. Thank you so much for coming back. We always love having you here. So hopefully you can come back on again soon and let us know when the song is out, and we will play it across the podcast week after week.
Thanks, Chris. Great to meet you, Brian. All the best.
And you, Adrian, mate. All the best, buddy.
Thank you, Adrian. And Brian, tell everyone where they can find you on social media, what you're up to at the moment, and thank you so much for coming back.
Chris, first of all, thanks for letting me come back and asking me. I always love coming on and discussing Spurs with you and your chat and the panelists. They can find me at Tottenham on Tour. Also, I do a lot with We Are Tottenham TV. And yeah, we've got to do some more content on Tottenham on Tour, and it's coming soon. But thank you, Chris, once again.
Brian, look forward to having you on again very soon as well, talking about all things Tottenham Hotspur, and let's hope that we can get a couple of signings in before that happens, because I want to be talking to a happy Brian, not a grumpy one.
Well, you're right. I'm so misunderstood. I'm always happy. I'm always
I
a
know,
ray
I
of
know.
sunshine.
Brian, Adrian, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Harry as well. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for watching. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can vote for us at the Sports Podcast Awards, that would be very, very appreciated. And we will see you on the next edition of the Spurs Chat podcast very, very soon. Have a great weekend, everyone. Come on, you Spurs.
Go on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.